Very excited for our session today. We're here at a roundtable setting with BankUnited, and I have the pleasure of opening up the session and helping in the moderation of this really important topic and theme of the importance of selecting a workplace environment that values diversity, equity, inclusion, and really is invested in your leadership journey. So I'm Janine San Luis. I serve as Director of Corporate Relations here at the College of Business for FIU. And it's been my real honor and delight over the last, what has it been, like 6 weeks, 8 weeks that we have been coming together weekly. If you can find me, I think you can find everybody here and myself and some of my other colleagues at 8:30 in the morning every single Wednesday, strategizing on how to best serve our students and our community. So it's been a real treat for us to be able to host this session. And so some of you are going to be live here this afternoon and have the opportunity to interact with our executive team here for BankUnited. And those of you who are watching this in the future, welcome as well. We're excited to have you because this is going to be an incredible opportunity as we really kickstart and launch our partnership with BankUnited. And we have some really exciting stuff to share with you about what an upcoming internship and scholarship process is going to look like. So we'll share those details before we wrap up this afternoon. So welcome, welcome. So I wanted to just introduce, before I pass along the baton to Eric, I wanted to introduce the members of BankUnited that are with us today. So Eric Hibbert is the Executive Vice President and Managing Senior Credit Officer, Residential and Consumer Risk Manager for BankUnited. He's here with us today. We have the pleasure of having 3 alums on this call with us. So Dolsin Rivas just recently graduated 2017. She's a marketing coordinator. We have Cristina Frias, who is the Executive Vice President and Director of Financial Planning and Analysis and Transformational Officer, who graduated in 2000. Melanie Hapner, thank you so much for being with us today. She's the Risk Advisory Manager. And lastly, our alum Vivian Vogt-Lowell, who's an MBA grad, 10, Vice President of Technology Business Relationship Manager for Corporate Finance. So welcome, team. We're thrilled to have you, and we're really thrilled to have this robust discussion on what this means in today's climate. It's such an opportunity for us to come together to have this discussion. So Eric, first question for you, and just some opening remarks. You know, we talked a little bit through this morning and through the last couple of weeks, but at BankUnited, what does this look like right now with racial unrest and diversity, equity, inclusion? What's the bank's commitment and thoughts on this, of what you've been doing to shift culture? And how is it that, you know, what we've taken from this year, what is it going to look like for the future? So opening remarks from you, Eric, before we start moderating the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you for hosting this. You know, we at BankUnited are on a journey. You guys notice I'm wearing my BankUnited shirt. Really, that's for the occasion here. We started really in June of this year to think about what was happening in the larger society outside the bank and how the bank can actually participate first internally and then externally what was going on. So, you know, the way I think about it is there's a social contract amongst people. There's just this idea that we should be helping one another and being good to one another. In June of this year, you know, prompted by what was going on seemingly every day or every couple of days, the chairman of the bank decided that he wanted to launch what at the time seemed, you know, was just a diversity and inclusion group. What we have done with it is significantly more than I think he initially intended, but he has been supportive of everything we're doing. I make the statement all the time that, it's attributed to the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And our first step was to set up a council of people who would bring ideas forward around inclusion and diversity. We have formed something called iCare. It is our internal group that actually drives a lot of what is going to go on at the bank. It's the inclusive community of advocacy, respect, and equality. I am the chair, and there are members of iCare that you'll be hearing from as the day goes on. We are looking to create an atmosphere within the bank that is safe for everyone and see each other as human beings. And ultimately, our view of the world is if you can create that in a small microcosm of a bank, then you can expand that to the rest of society. We posit that thesis and we will see, we believe ourselves to be right. We will see whether or not we are right. Tied to that is a fair amount of stuff that we want to do. Part of it is engaging with younger people, you folks, on kind of two levels, right? The first is the bank is ultimately looking for young people and generally more kind of open people that we can build a culture around, right? So the bank is on this journey now to create a culture. iCare is part of it. The chairman is actually looking to have more statements of principles for what we will be doing in the future. And that will all tie into, how we hire, how we look at people, how we promote, all that. So for us, this is kind of the beginning. I want to tie all this though back to just this idea of we're all human beings in this society dealing with kind of news that is often not pretty, right? And my goal and part of all this is to the extent I can spur you young folks to more action, like that's what I want to do in the thing, because it's clear the generations that have come before you have kind of screwed things up a little bit, maybe a lot. But it's kind of up to younger folks to try and help fix that, and to the extent older folks like me can help participate in that and help you guys spur you along and whatever, that's what we'd like to do. So I went off on my random tangents, which I do a lot. The answer to the question though is the bank has traditionally not focused on inclusion as part of its core values. And certainly over the last couple of months, we have done that. We are putting together long-term plans that will drive a lot of the message home. We're building around mentoring and diversity and just doing things that are more active in the community. We've started down that path, and we will continue doing that. So, I don't know if I answered your question totally.
Those are great opening remarks, Eric. I think we hit it spot on, and we're just waiting here for a couple more of the students to join us. So welcome those of you who have joined us. Thank you so much for being here for this discussion. So we have a couple of questions. So before I get started, I wanted to share with you and direct the students and our participants. We do have the chat option and feature. We'll be monitoring some questions there. We want this to be a collaborative experience. So if there is something that you'd like addressed or any questions that you may have, please put it in the chat. We're going to be facilitating about 30-35-minute discussion on some of these questions, but then we'll open it up for question and answer, and you can directly answer your questions there. Also, if you're not speaking, or if you're speaking and you're on mute or unmuted, please mute yourself unless you want to ask a question or you're speaking, only because we are recording this session and we will be sending this out to future students as well, or new students as well. So let's kick this off on the question, and I want to really showcase our Generation Z panelist, Dolsin, Rivas. So Dolsin, you just recently graduated. I say just recently, but it was in 2017. So it's been about, it's been a couple years. And so tell us and tell the students, the current students that are with us today, what was your onboarding experience? Like, tell us about your hiring, your culture experience at BankUnited. What drew you as a student to come to BankUnited, and what keeps you there now? And no pressure. I know that you have other people, your team here, but tell us as far as the student experience, and we wanted to bring that out, what your thoughts are on that.
Of course. So I attended FIU. I majored in marketing. When I was first kind of venturing out into the career field, I actually first ended up at a real estate firm in their marketing department. So when I was ready to make a more greater career change, I came across BankUnited job posting for a marketing coordinator on LinkedIn. To be honest, I was a little hesitant to apply at first based on the fact that I was not familiar at all with the financial or banking industry. I knew nothing of that world, so I wasn't sure if BankUnited would be the right fit for me. However, I did take the chance to apply after looking into BankUnited, seeing the reviews of past employees, looking into the company, and I did like what I was seeing. It seemed like it was a bank that was cemented here in Miami Lakes. And pretty much it seemed like they were open to have different kinds of people, even if you didn't really necessarily have that banking experience. So I went through the hiring process. It was very standard. We did a phone interview. One thing that did catch me off guard, because it hadn't happened in my previous job, was a group interview. So that actually showed me how collaborative the BankUnited culture really is. They wanted to find somebody to join their team, but they wanted to make sure that that new team member would work well with the other people in their department. So after going through that group interview, luckily, I was hired and onboarded. I discovered that BankUnited does also offer learning courses for people just like me to teach them A through Z, how does the banking industry work, all the way from a teller to somebody like me who works in corporate in their marketing department. And that's to say overall that I was lucky to be within a department who was very open and receptive to new ideas. I know when you're one of the youngest people in the room, you're fearful that others won't listen to your ideas or take into account your thoughts, but that wasn't the case for me. I was lucky to have found a team who was open to me bringing in new ideas, whether it was something for a campaign we were going to run or something we were thinking of doing on social media. It made me feel really valued and like I was being heard, which is sometimes difficult to find when you are, a Gen Z or a millennial, and in a room full of people who have been there for 10, 20, 30 years and are more knowledgeable than you. So apart from all of that, I already loved working at BankUnited. I do see lots of opportunities to grow within the bank, which is what is keeping me at the bank. There are pathways for me to excel and move up, and bringing on the idea of becoming more diverse and inclusive, forming the council with Eric and having our CEO support backing it, just shows me that this company not only cares about its employees, but they care about the community as a whole. And like Eric said, if we are able to enact that change within our own small space, then that's just one step forward to enacting it overall.
Thank you so much, Dolsin, for that answer. And we'll come back to you to just kind of plug into some of those things. It's so great to see that you've prospered in this dynamic. So Eric, yes, on the similar standpoint of the hiring process, we actually just got an email question, and it actually comes into this question that we were going to, ask you and ask the team around. What really stands out when you're selecting students to onboard? And the follow-up question, and I'm happy to hold it after for you, but basically the follow-up question is, what measures are being taken actively to monitor staff diversity and ensuring a continuous diverse organization? That's the kind of couple, and I feel like it's the onboarding, recruiting, talent, umbrella. But those are the two questions. I'll make sure to ping you if you miss any points, but I doubt you will. Go ahead.
Well, I hope not to. So the overall idea of recruiting, hiring, onboarding is something that we are looking at in depth right now. In general, to date, it has been structured around the needs of the particular department, in particular, the particular manager. So it has been essentially a kind of one-lane highway of solving for the manager's needs. What we are going to institute is the idea of having not just the manager review. So we're looking at having a team of people review, and then including people not in that department. I can't tell you that it's an idea we came up with ourselves. We're actually borrowing it from Amazon. But the idea is, let's get to a point where you take a lot of the social stuff away and you're just looking at empirically, can this person do the job? And once you get to that, then it really is a fairly easy thing to me. It should not be a difficult thing to hire someone to do a job if you're looking at a number of resumes that all the people are qualified. And if you're doing that, and if you're doing that with blinders on, then you will get a diverse population. Our goal is that over time, if you're not adding in other qualities that we don't believe drives the idea of hiring someone, then you will get a diverse population. The other thing is just, it's an easy thing to say, but it is proven diverse populations within organizations make more money. Like the idea of diversity of thought, diversity of people, diversity of backgrounds, whatever, it lends itself to different ideas, and over time, businesses make more money, kind of thing. So, answer your first question, it's just, we're going to hire people we're going to push as much as we can to get to just an empirical analysis of the person that we're hiring. The answer to the second question is, we believe if we're doing that, over time, we will get to diversity. This stuff doesn't happen immediately, but we expect that it will happen over time.
And so just to pivot to Vivian on the team for a second, Vivian, as far as your experience, and you're an alum, and your experience with the bank, can you share with us what has been a real meaningful moment in your career that you grew professionally? And if there's an example of the bank, wonderful, but what's something that's a takeaway that you'd like to share with us here this afternoon?
There's so many examples to give. I started my career in retail, and after 8 years, I decided to come into banking. So as you can imagine, it was a big career shift, and it's scary, when you feel like you're going into an organization with experience, but no experience within the topic at hand. And I must say that from day one at BankUnited, all the directors that I've worked with, reported to, have been so welcoming, and they involve you from day one in big projects, events, committees such as iCare, as we're talking about now. And they just expose me to different topics, to different groups of people across the bank, no matter what level I've been at in my career. We kind of label ourselves as jacks of all trades. And it has been extremely meaningful because it's made me knowledgeable on a broad assortment of ideas and hasn't really pigeonholed me into just knowing how to do one thing. So I've had the good fortune, again, of reporting to wonderful people who believed in us, included me in high-level focused projects, which I've learned a lot from, forced me to think that I'm, to expand my horizons and believe in myself a little more, no matter how scary, champion an idea, run with it. And I've never looked back and regretted one of those moments. It's just proved invaluable. And most recently, I took a big career change. I've worked in the finance department for Frias here on the line for 11 years. And an opportunity arose to kind of make a lateral move into a new role that kind of touches finance and IT. It's kind of a liaison between my finance team and my IT folks. It was very scary, but I thought, someone that I think of very highly once said, never turn an opportunity down. And I had all the support from Christy and our CSO to make that move. And I've done it. And like I said, it's been challenging, but I've learned so much in this past year. And I feel that overall, it's just made me a stronger employee. I have insight into a lot of other areas that I've never would have had. IT is not an area that I really thought, oh, let me take an interest in this, because, we're involved in so many things. And it's just made me more knowledgeable, well-rounded, and just more curious on more topics.
What a pivot as well, the fact that you made that decision. You were in one space, and then you got uncomfortable, right? In the sense of navigate and migrate to that next space. And so just flipping it back to Eric, but I would love to welcome, any of the other panelists that would like to answer this question, because I always think it's a beautiful question, is the fact of, what is some advice that you would have given your college version of yourself? Like, if you now, obviously perspective is 2020, but like, what is something that you would have told the you of college yesteryear of what you would do, take advantage of right now?
I'll take that one first.
Sure.
But I think a couple of us should answer this, right? So the first thing I would say is dream big. Like, no limits on yourself. There's a quote that says you aim for the stars, and if you miss, you land on the moon, which is still a pretty good place to land, kind of thing. I think I'm first generation here from Jamaica, and what you see in kind of first generations is you try to conform, which to me leaves a lot of space that you don't actually spend time exploring, kind of thing. As an older person now, kind of been in business, traveling and all that, there were so many things that I could have explored earlier and worked my way through in college. So I went to college, I was an engineer, kind of thing. And I graduated and I realized, like, this is not for me. So I've spent my entire career in finance. But I never thought that I could be a CEO of a company or be something very senior, and I would work hard, but within, kind of the front brain, I wasn't really thinking about, you should be thinking about taking an opportunity to leave where you are, to go somewhere else, take a bigger role, grow into that role, be something different, kind of thing. In retrospect, I think, I put limits on myself. And now, kind of as an older person, I can look back and see that. And what I would say to anyone in college, anyone young, is like, take some risk. go for it. Like, because in many cases it works out, right? And if it doesn't work out, you're young, you just go get another job, kind of thing, right? And that's kind of a smart ass thing to say, but I think you have to know yourself, and to the extent that you are comfortable being in a situation that is uncomfortable. You do not grow within your comfort zone, right? In order to get better, you have to kind of work on the things that you're not good at, and you got to get outside your comfort zone. And I think for young people at this point, you can look at kind of the entire world, right? The world, away from kind of COVID, the world has gotten smaller. So the same job that you're doing in the US, you could be doing in Australia or somewhere else, kind of thing, So I always just widen the scope of the dream and see what happens.
Great perspective. Does anybody else want to jump into that question? I wanted to ask it at this point because I thought, Vivian, from your transition statement and taking risks, right, is so important in what a career journey is for a student, but even in your professional career. But please feel free to jump in, or anybody else who wants to jump into this question before we move on to any of the other questions regarding what would you advice you'd give yourself if you were in college again as an undergraduate student?
I'd say the same thing that Eric, echo what Eric said. Don't limit yourself. Don't think because if you graduate, I graduated with a marketing degree and I ended up in finance, and now I'm a crossover into IT. Just embrace all opportunities and don't limit yourself. Just, go for it. Go for more, as we say in BankUnited.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And the only thing I would add to that is, even coming in, I think Dolsin mentioned this before, when you're coming in as a college grad into a company and you're surrounded by people that are, really experienced and really knowledgeable, it can always be really intimidating, but, have confidence in yourself and in the ideas that you're bringing to the table, and know that in and of itself is very valuable. And that the fact that you were hired and you were brought in, that there's a reason for that. I was very lucky throughout my entire career in many similar ways like Viv, because I had so many mentors and so many managers kind of over the years and different roles that always facilitated a seat at the table for me. And so from that standpoint, I always felt confident, bringing new ideas and kind of pushing the envelope and thinking outside the box, because they really made me feel comfortable that I could do that. But, looking back now, I wish even as a college student that I thought that way, that I felt that going in like, hey, my ideas are just as good as anyone else's, because I'm going to look at it from a different perspective, and that in and of itself is going to be important. So I would also stress that as well.
That you spoke up and
well, check in with Mel on this, because Mel is kind of interesting, right? Because Mel's like a college athlete, right?
Yeah, I wasn't going to chime in because you guys really hit the nail on the head for me. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, like Eric said, really don't limit yourself. As, people of minority descent, it's easy to limit yourself. It's actually a natural tendency because you don't see people that look like you all the time. They're not perpetuated in movies on the screen, and even the people you see, day to day, especially if you're like Eric, first generation, if you don't even have family members a lot of times that are where, so you don't see yourself there, but you have to kind of not limit yourself. Know that you can get there, really hold on tight to your mentors, listen to them, and really just take up space. Like Christy said, get in there, speak your mind, speak your thoughts, but also take a step back and listen to the responses that you get. And you have to be confident enough to kind of speak your mind, but know that your ideals aren't always going to be accepted, and that doesn't mean that your ideals are bad. That doesn't mean that your ideas aren't welcomed, and that doesn't mean that your ideas haven't gotten someone else to a better idea, right? So you just have to really have that kind of confidence in yourself and keep taking up space, just keep getting out there, saying what you need to do, saying what you need to say. You may not have the practical experience, but you have book smarts. You're graduating from FIU, you've read the books, you've done the test, and now it's time to, get out there and apply it. And there will be people out there who will help you apply your knowledge and your skills to, practically. So I think you guys kind of nailed it. So I was just going to stay on mute, but glad to participate.
Well, let me throw something else in also, right? I mean, the other thing to think about from a career standpoint is people need to think that you're already in that next job for you, right? There's a little bit of fake it till you make it kind of thing, right? Because if you get a big promotion, you don't know all the inner workings of that job you just got promoted to. And you will either grow into it or you will shrink away from it, right? And the thought is, someone had enough confidence in you to tap you on the shoulder, so they think you can grow into it. But the thought is, don't just grow into kind of the current role. You've got to make it your own, right? You bring all the things that you bring to the table. Don't leave it when you get to a job or a situation or all that. A couple of folks have sort of said confidence. And when you're young, it's hard to be confident because it seems like everyone else is smarter than you when you're sitting in the room. It's all BS, right? Half of the people in the room are faking it also. And to the extent that you want to know the thing that you are opining on and speaking about, right? So, early on in your career, double check your facts, double check your figures. When you make the statement, make sure the statement makes sense. You have to build your own credibility over time. And after a while, it becomes second nature, right? So I would say, those are kind of the things, just kind of wrap this up,
This is perfect. Thank you so much for jumping in. And Melanie, if I can take a quote of this session, I love what you said about taking up space. That to me is so important. I remember kind of where I read it, but it was a matter of even like as small as in the boardroom, like spread out your stuff, like take up room, don't be so small. Lay out your things in a very big way. I'm like stretching it out here at my desk right now, but just one closing as far as, so we really want to have some questions on the student side, but grounding it back on the diversity piece, and this question is really that to double up both for you, Mel, and for Eric, in the sense of the importance of the culture of inclusivity and what students should be looking out for when they're looking for, right now in this dynamic, right? A lot of our students are aspiring, really are going to be thinking about, it's a difficult economic climate, right? But they're looking at, being very selective in the roles that they select and the company culture that they select. So what should they be looking out for? What are they diversity statements? What are the action steps that, what are red flags that maybe stand out that share some things? Is there any direction there that you can provide our students on the importance of that inclusivity and what they should be looking out for?
Great. Okay. So first, I think it's really important to, be able to differentiate the difference between diversity and inclusivity. So, being diverse naturally is just obviously having a group of people that, look different, that, participate in different types of activities, that speak different languages, Some may have disabilities, some may not have disabilities, right? That's diversity. But inclusivity is including all of those people from different backgrounds and giving them, you know, an opportunity to opine, making them feel welcome, giving them a seat at the table, right? So it's not really enough, in my opinion, to look at the company's makeup and say, hey, they look diverse, that's where I want to be, right? Because every company is not going to foster your growth necessarily, and they're not going to, you know, latch on to you and sponsor you and really take care of you. So I think that's really, really, really important for young people to know, especially in the South Florida market, because we are a melting pot down here. There are a lot of, you know, there's a lot of natural diversity. So companies will be diverse, but ask yourself, are they inclusive? So when you get to that stage, you know, really try to get a feel for that. You know, like Eric said earlier, racial equity and inclusivity is correlated to better business outcomes, you know? So, you know, just keep that in mind as well. So I guess, what should they be looking for? I think they should be looking for, just, I guess, a feel, really. Like, are they going to actually include me, or do they just, you know, or is it just, they just need another number kind of thing, you know? So that's probably what I would say.
Yeah, and I would say we've been struggling. I have personally been struggling with the use of the term diversity, because my takeaway from diversity is, as Mel just said, it's about numbers, right? And at BankUnited, we are not solving initially for the numbers. We are solving for a much broader item, which is, we want to get to people's hearts and minds and souls, right? Because we believe that if we get people to see each other as valuable assets to the bank, then this idea of diversity will take care of itself. Hiring managers won't hire, there will be no more culture fit and all kind of nonsense stuff that goes on. But even more important, once someone is at the bank, we have to make sure that the people there are taken care of, which means career pathing and mentoring and we're throwing around, our CFO actually is not the biggest fan of mentoring, but she is a huge fan of sponsorship. People taking other people under their wings and making sure that they get through. So it's not, you can look at numbers in companies. What we're trying to solve for is, okay, we hire a young woman, in 3 years, has she moved to VP? In 5 years, is she, is that thing occurring? Because if it's not occurring, then we're really not doing anything, right? We're just kind of, solving for some numbers, and we'll be able to put together a nice marketing flyer and send it out, and we're diverse, and like nothing's happened, right? So it's really more around what the thought is from a people standpoint, and then what we are doing, from an overall operational standpoint to kind of make sure that all that stuff occurs.
Fantastic. Well, we're like right on time. So we have our students, some of our students that are here. We really want to turn this back on you all and ask your pressing questions. This is, I think from a lot of our companies that have come together for our roundtable sessions with our students, this is one of the first times that we've discussed some of these issues and challenges, and how are our corporate partners stepping up to meet these opportunities for our students. So students, I welcome you in this question and answer session to just unmute yourself and have just that discussion point with these incredible executives at BankUnited.
Yanine, can I pose a question to the group?
Sure, go ahead.
So I have a question for the students. What is it that you guys are looking for when you're searching for a company to join kind of after graduation or maybe for an internship?
I can go for an answer.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think something that we are looking for is seeing a company that has a lot of opportunities, that has different fields, and that has different places that we can work at. So let's say something doesn't work for us, we want to make sure that we can go within the company to a different field, and we don't have to start looking for other opportunities at other companies.
Portability. We agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's extremely valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, I started my career at BankUnited specifically in one area, and I moved throughout many areas, and not because, you know, I kind of like Vivian, not because I thought that that's where I needed to be, but because I had, you know, some mentors that said, look, I think this is where you could be, you know, and I kind of landed there. So I agree with you, Juan.
Yes, and I worked for BankUnited in 2017 to 2019. I was a teller back then.
Nice.
Yes.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
That's
yes,
awesome.
yes.
At
So
what branch?
Plantation.
Okay.
Oh, were you?
Yes.
I must have crossed paths with you at some point because that was the one branch I used to go in and out of all of the time.
Yeah. So it was a really fun experience. Like I transferred from retail to banking. So it was learning a whole different scenario, and it was learning to deal with clients, high-end clients, to deal with their financials. And it was something that I didn't know. So at first, like Eric said, it was a little like fake it until you make it. And then it was just like me putting my heart to use like learn the basics of the bank, how to work with the clients, how to treat them, and how to learn the system of BankUnited.
That's awesome.
And those are
That is awesome.
transferable skills, right?
Yes.
Like, works at BankUnited, but it works at any bank, or it generally works in any business, right? Like, if you can take care of clients, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah. And I really had a big opportunity to work with people who really like coach me well in the job, and who really love to see like us younger people like get ahead in BankUnited.
Yeah. No, younger people are going to take over the world, man. I can't wait. And you know, I'm getting to the point that it feels like young people from FIU are going to take over the world, because everywhere I go, it's FIU all the time. Like I didn't know that Viv and Christy were like FIU grads, and then someone was like, "Oh yeah, they're both FIU grads." When we were starting to talk to FIU, I'm like, "Okay," and then I started talking to Dolsin. Dolsin's an FIU grad. I'm like, I can't get away from FIU grads.
This is good.
Yeah.
I have a question in the chat, but before I turn it over, I think Carolina had unmuted herself. Carolina, did you have something that you wanted to share with the group on the type of employers or type of things you're looking for?
Well, yeah, one of the things first I wanted to say thank you to all of you for being here. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was that it's the mentoring opportunities that you can get when you're in an organization and you want to move up and you want to grow within the organization and help the organization grow and have that opportunity, and those leaders also take on the interest in you and you know lead you on and guide you into that growth. And sometimes if you're not maybe you're not sure, they can point you in the right direction. And finding your way through the banking industry or the financial industry is sometimes it's not that easy. There's so many opportunities. There's risk, there's operations, there's retail, there's corporate, business. So there's so much that it's available. And sometimes you start as a teller, and then, you know, you grow within the branch, and then you go to back office, and there's all this whole new world. And sometimes just finding your way and having someone guide you and mentor you, it's so amazing to find that within a company.
Can I, that's the perfect segue. So we are, over the next year, rolling out a mentorship program. And our tagline is, from the time you start at BankUnited until the time you leave, you should either be a mentor, a mentee, or both. So a lot of stuff we're doing now, actually, you know, this is a huge part of the team that's working on it. But our intention is that everyone at BankUnited will be playing a role in our mentorship program.
It's fantastic. And we did have Loudon, who, thank you, Melanie, for sharing. And yes, you have your question out there. Loudon, were you able to figure out the star unmute?
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
I'm actually through my phone. I was just in another meeting. I was clarifying that up as I was getting to this one. So I do apologize. Okay, so my question I put in the chat, what would you recommend students of color and other minority groups do to prepare for future roles and opportunities, not in just this financial institution, but other institutions that are similar? And my follow-up question as well is, what qualities would you also look for in prospective employees and recent graduates?
So I can definitely answer that latter one for you. I mean, I think, and I think this is probably especially for you guys, because you guys are all young and you're in school, and you know, you're not going to have these like super robust resumes, right, walking into these opportunities. And I want to stress how so many times it's more about, you know, you and the way you come across and the attitude that you have, your level of enthusiasm for wanting to learn new things and wanting to expand, you know, your experience and what you're willing to be exposed to. That goes so much farther, really, in having a successful candidate sometimes, than just having someone that looks perfect on paper, that has the exact experience and that has, you know, the very specific industry background. I mean, that having that fresh perspective and coming in with new ideas and, you know, being able to kind of take something and kind of tear it apart and look at it a different way and say, why don't, you know, have you guys considered doing this? That is really big. And I know for us at BankUnited, we put a lot of, you know, of stress on that when we're looking at candidates. It's not just about having the right criteria or the right resume. It's really about how you are as a person and what ideas you can bring to the table. And, you know, having that attitude is definitely one of the things that's really going to help you get far.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Christy. If I can just add, I think that, you know, as a person of color, you have to be comfortable just speaking in a room, you know, because you're not always going to see people that look like you. So just, you know, gain confidence when you're in class, and when, you know, your instructor asks for a volunteer, raise your hand, you know, raise your hand, say something. Just get used to kind of talking in front of people who, you know, are less familiar to you, I think is really important. But I would also really stress resume review, because although it's not the final, you know, I guess, tool or key to getting the job, it does get you in the door. You want people to actually be able to see your face, you know? And I think that sometimes it's difficult because sometimes you don't feel like you need to ask for help, or you don't want to ask for help because you kind of feel like you can do it on your own, which you probably can eventually with trial and error. But if you don't have to go through the resume trial and error, utilize your career services or career development office to really go through your resume and tell them, hey, there's this job that I really want, and this is what my resume looks like. Those people can really, really, really help you out and help you get into the door so that you can, you know, like Christy said, you know, be you. Just be comfortable speaking in, you know, in you and your own self, and don't feel like you have to, you know, conform to being like another person to get a job. Just be yourself.
Yeah. I would say if I'm hiring a young person, I look for kind of two things, right? Like, are you intellectually curious, right? And will you work hard? And, you know, my thing is, if you can, if I'm hiring someone that needs 10 years experience, it's a whole different thing, right? You're coming in the door, and what I'm looking for is, if I put you on this project, are you going to be able to think through how to get the project done? Do you have different ideas, or, you know, and will you just work to get the project done, right? Some of it is just, you know, I am not the biggest fan of just like people staying in the building long periods of time, but if you're working while you're in the building, right, then that's a great thing. You know, I built a lot of my career by just outworking all the other people at my level, you know, and once you do, it becomes learned behavior after a while, and once you do it, you'll just continue doing it.
So my main takeaways from all of this was more so not just individual experiences, but personality. Are you the type to be enthusiastic, ability being willing to grow, intellectual curiosity, ability to be comfortable in a room speaking with different individuals, sometimes much more higher up in the ladder than yourself. And you know, aiming for productivity in certain projects, not just staying in office all day. Are you actually doing something to better the project or better the company, bring value?
Yeah.
And you seem like the kind of guy that's going to bring a pen to your boss's office, Lon. So you already sound like you're on the right track.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I was actually just talking to, funny enough, I was just talking to my project lead about a few things. We had a meeting as an entire group for our project team, and I had a few additional ideas and questions that I was trying to submit to him. But yes, you know, my background is in banking, so I think once I graduate, I'll probably lean towards more banking, financial services. I do have some fraud and AML compliance experience, so I was probably trying to lean to that as well. So I'm actually quite interested. I think there was one of the members of the roundtable who was working in compliance.
That was probably me. Yeah. So I don't work in compliance currently, but I originally started my career in compliance. I do work in risk management. So I worked on the first line of risk, and now in the second line, and now I'm back on the first line. So I've done a lot of different risk management focused areas, and I think that it's a great career and a great profession. So yeah, I'm a risk management champion. I say go for it.
Okay, if I may inquire, how did you get your start into risk management and compliance?
So for me, I will say I took the non-traditional route into risk management, so you're probably not going to go this route. But I got my undergraduate degree in broadcast journalism, and then I went to law school. And I decided I wanted to work in corporate America, and I went into compliance because there was a lot of laws, rules, and regulations that I felt like I could use my degree to understand. So I did that. I didn't work in AML or BSA compliance. I wasn't doing investigations or anything like that. But from there, you know, I just kind of pivoted and started doing a bunch of different things. So I, you know, say all that to say, you know, you can have a focus and you get into, you know, one area, and then you might, you know, find another area of interest. That's the great thing about financial services, as, you know, I'm sure Dolsin or Vivian or even Cristina and Eric will tell you, you know, it's not just one size fits all. If you go into AML and BSA, like, who knows, you could end up maybe in corporate fraud. You never know, you know. So if obviously, like for you, Lawton, and anyone else on the line, if you guys want to connect with me on LinkedIn and ask, you know, more specific questions, if there's something in my bio or something that I said that you want to follow up on, I'm more than happy to connect with any of you guys personally.
That was actually going to be my last question. about the LinkedIn. So yes, that's all for me. But thank you all very much for your input. I am taking notes.
Thank you guys for showing up.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we are at the top of the hour. I can't believe it's been an hour already, everyone.
I knew it was going to go really quickly.
Super quick. So I wanted to share with the students that are watching now, and you all actually, we are in the process of solidifying with our BankUnited team here an incredible partnership with an internship and scholarship component to it. And more details will come out of that very soon. I posted in the chat my email. So any of the students that are on this call that are interested in opportunities with BankUnited, please go ahead and forward me your email. I will be happy to connect you with this team. If you are willing to have some of the students reach out to you and also send those over to the team as far as the resumes go. So you'll have that first. We're keeping a group of students who have been engaged with BankUnited, really top of mind and top of the list, so that when the opportunity goes out, you all see it and you're able to apply since you've been engaging with us first. So thank you so much. This wraps up our Roundtable series with BankUnited. We appreciate every single one of you all that have joined us, both on the student front and on the BankUnited front. We're excited for the possibilities that are going to come upon us, and thank you, students, for your time with all these incredible questions that you asked. So we'll see each other very soon, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for putting
everyone.
this together.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Guys.